Hello, here we are, chapter 13, groups and teams. There's a little bit of a difference between a group and a team. We're going to talk about that. At some point, all of you, I'm sure, have worked in a group or a team, and we're going to talk about maybe some of the experiences you've had. Okay, so why is teamwork important? Essentially, many hands make light work, and it also brings in multiple perspectives, and it also provides buy-in. People understand, why decisions are made and can work to achieve corporate goals together. So increased productivity, speed, reduces costs, quality, reduces internal competition among people, and improves workplace cohesiveness. And in many ways, too, your ability to work well as a team member can affect your job opportunities and successes, as well as influencing the kind of employers that might appeal to you. Okay, so what is the difference between a work group and a work team? Group is two or more freely interacting individuals who share norms, share goals, and have common identity. A team, group of people with complementary skills committed to a common purpose. So really the difference is that the team has complementary skills. Groups can have some of the same skills, a group of researchers, a group of salesmen, that kind of thing. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Oh, maybe not, sorry. Okay, so formal versus informal groups. Formal group can be a division, a department, a work group, or a committee. It can be permanent or temporary. In general, people are assigned to them according to their skills and the organization's requirement. Informal groups, simply a collection of friends who hang out with one another, such as those who take coffee breaks together, or it may be organized as a prayer breakfast, a bowling team, a service club, a company quote alumni group for former employees, or other voluntary organizations. And what's important for you as a manager to know is that informal groups can advance or undercut the plans of formal groups. The formal organization may take efforts to speed up the plant assembly line or to institute workplace reforms, but these attempts may be sabotaged through the informal networks of workers who meet and gossip over lunch pails, and after-work beers. However, interestingly, informal groups can also be highly productive, even more so than formal groups. And that, I don't know, you might want to think about why that is. It's they're joined. Maybe they have a more loyalty to each other. Okay, various types of team: work teams, project teams, cross-functional teams, self-managed teams, and virtual teams. So different teams have different characteristics, and we can differentiate some of the teams according to their purpose, their duration, and the level of member commitment. Excuse me. Okay, so the virtual team, a virtual team is, as we said, someone who works together over time and distance via electronic media to combine efforts and achieve common goals. So there are some benefits. It certainly reduces costs. It helps people from different geographic areas to work together. And it also can reduce commuting and travel expenses. Potential challenges, though, is sometimes it's hard to establish team cohesion because people don't actually know each other. You don't have that personal interaction. You can't see nonverbal cues, which is, we'll talk about that with communication. And it's never a substitute for face-to-face contact. Okay, so let's talk about the stages of group and team development. There's forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. We're going to go through them one by one. Forming is when people are first getting acquainted. They determine, why are we here? Where do I fit in? Essentially, at this stage, leaders want to give people time to become acquainted and socialize. Mutual trust is low. There's a good deal of holding back to see who takes charge and how. Conflict at this stage can be actually beneficial, leading to increased creativity. And at this juncture, if the formal leader, such as the supervisor, does not assert his or her authority, an emergent leader will eventually step in to fill the group's need for leadership and direction. And during this stage, leaders should allow time for people, again, to become acquainted and socialize with each other. Okay, next is storming. that's when people's individual personalities and people's individual personalities emerge, and conflicts also. People want to determine what's my role here, who does what. It's a time of testing. Individuals test leaders' policies and assumptions as they try to determine how they fit into power structure. Subgroups may take shape, and subtle forms of rebellion, such as procrastination, occur. Many groups kind of stall at stage 2 because power politics may erupt into open rebellion, and this stage may be short of duration or painfully long, depending upon goal clarity and the commitment and maturity of its members. That storming stage is important it's important that it's managed well. Okay, next is norming, essentially determining what's acceptable behavior in the group. So conflicts are resolved, relationships develop, unity and harmony hopefully will emerge. People determine what's expected from them. Usually you make it through stage 2 because a respected member, other than the leader, challenges the group to resolve its power struggle, so something can be accomplished. Questions about authority are resolved through unemotional, matter-of-fact group discussion, and a feeling of team spirit is experienced because members believe they have found their proper roles, and this stage generally does not last long. Okay, next, performing. That's why they're there. So can you believe it? We're in the 4th step. There's 5 steps, and before we get to the 4th step, before we get to performing. So individuals, the question here is, how can I best perform my role? And for the group or the team, the issue is, can we do this properly? During this stage, leaders should allow members, they should empower members that they need, empower members so that they can achieve their tasks. Okay, and then finally, step 5 is adjourning. So having worked so hard to get along and get something done, many members feel a compelling sense of loss. And the leaders can help ease the transition by rituals or celebrating the end or the new beginnings. Parties, award ceremonies, graduations, mock funerals can provide the needed punctuation at the end of a significant teamwork project. The leader can also emphasize valuable lessons learned in the group dynamics to prepare everyone for future group and team efforts. Okay, so not everyone necessarily buys into this whole nice little packaged 5-step stage of group formation. So there is a counter theory to that called punctuated equilibrium. And often it occurs when there's some sort of unexpected change. So you might be going along there may be a new member or a change in the task or something like that. So punctuated equilibrium it really takes in, to a certain extent, one could argue that 5-stage model exists in a bubble, whereas punctuated equilibrium takes into account that there are other outside forces that are going to impact the team development. So essentially, the question is, how do you build a high-performance work team? And essentially, there are current research and practice suggests 7 attributes: shared leadership, shared accountability, sense of common purpose, trust and open communication, clear role expectations, early conflict resolution, and collaboration. So as a future manager, the first thing you need to realize is that building a high-performance team is going to require a lot of work, but the payoff will be stronger and a better performing work unit. So you want to have these things. The most essential considerations in building a group into an effective team are collaboration, trust, performance, motivation, composition, in terms of positive composition, understanding roles, and establishing norms. And we're going to go through and talk about each one individually. Okay, so collaboration and trust, it's the act of sharing information and coordinating efforts to achieve a collective outcome. And trust is faith in others' intentions and behaviors. So, trust is at the base of absolutely every relationship, personal and work-related. Performance goals and feedback. You want to make sure that you have some sort of measurable goals and you have feedback about the performance, and the same is true with teams. They're not, teams aren't just collections of individuals. They're individuals organized for a collective purpose, and that purpose needs to be defined in terms of specific, measurable performance goals with continual feedback to tell members how they're doing. Otherwise, you don't know. And there's also gives some sense of satisfaction. Okay, motivation and team composition. Yeah, being mutually accountable to other members of the team rather than to a supervisor makes members feel mutual trust and commitment. And it's a key part in motivating members for team effort. Mutual accountability is fostered by having members share accountability for the work, authority over how goals are met, discretion over resource use, and ownership of information and knowledge related to the work. So it's important that there's, that that people will, through interdependence and composition, you will achieve motivation. Okay, team roles. There's different types of roles. Are the socially determined expectations of how an individual should behave in a specific position. And task roles consist of behavior that concentrates on getting the team's tasks done. And maintenance roles in terms of encouraging relationships between people. And different people, might hold different roles in the team. Okay, team norms. General guidelines or rules that help maintain behavior and team members should follow. So why are norms followed? To help the group survive, to clarify role expectations, to avoid embarrassing situations, and emphasize group importance and identity. So, for example, to help us survive, don't do anything that will hurt us. To clarify role expectations, you have to get along to get along. To help individuals avoid embarrassing situations, don't call attention to yourself. And then to emphasize important values and identity, we're known for being special. Know what it is that you are. What is the team's brand, so to speak? Okay, managing conflict. Conflict is inevitable whenever you get into, if there's more than two people in a room, you're going to have conflict. Actually more than one person in the room. So, and it can be either positive or negative. We refer to it as functional or dysfunctional. Functional conflict benefits the purpose of the organization and serves interests. And dysfunctional hinders some sort of performance and threatens its progress. So dysfunctional conflict is bad for organizations, obviously. Functional conflict is good for organizations. And a conflict, as I said, it's just part of life. Conflict is just part of life. Everyone has conflict. If we don't have conflict, then we're not human. Okay, so there is a relationship, between the intensity of conflict and performance outcomes. Just to give you an idea of what can happen if there's too little conflict. There's indolence. So work groups, departments, organizations that experience too little conflict tend to be plagued by apathy, lack of creativity, indecision, and missed deadlines. And essentially the result is that organizational performance suffers. Too much conflict is warfare. Excessive conflict, on the other hand, can erode organizational performance because of political infighting, dissatisfaction, lack of teamwork, and turnover. Workplace aggression and violence are manifestations of excessive conflict. So let's talk about a couple different kinds of conflict. There's personality conflict. Essentially, two people just don't get along. Personality clashes. Everyone has that. Again, it's just part of life. Intergroup conflicts is a we versus them. Inconsistent goals, ambiguous jurisdictions, status differences between, when we say intergroup, between group to group. There are also multicultural conflicts because there are, in the global economy, we have many more opportunities for it. So how can you build cross-cultural relationships? You just take a look at those. You can read through them. Be a good listener. Be sensitive to others. Be cooperative more than competitive. Advocate inclusion as opposed to exclusion. Compromise rather than dominate. Build rapport through conversation. Try to be compassionate and understanding. Try to emphasize harmony and nurture others in terms of developing and mentoring. Okay, other conflict, work-family conflicts. So it occurs actually when demands or pressures from work and family domains are mutually incompatible. So you might have one person who's single and doesn't have any responsibilities outside of work, and someone else who has a family and has to excuse me, has to leave early or, isn't as available, that kind of thing. So we just look at these different things. Work interfering with family, family interfering with work, and then outcomes and linked to life more generally. You can just, it can be, it can affect either side. It can affect your family life. It can affect your work life. It's just, just to be aware of this. Also, and so it's, positive things and negative things can come as a consequence of that. Okay, so how do you stimulate constructive conflict? So competition, to a certain extent, is a form of conflict, but competition is often healthy in spurring people to produce higher results. Thus, a company will often put its salespeople in competition with one another by offering bonuses and awards for achievement. So a trip to a resort or, Caribbean resort or, recognition for the top performer of the year. So competition can also be established by making deliberate and highly publicized moves to change the corporate culture, by announcing to employees that the organization is now going to be more innovative and reward original thinking and unorthodox ideas. So changing the culture, spur competition, change the organization's cultures, bring in outsiders for new perspectives. So it's the idea of bringing, without new blood, organizations have become inbred and resistant to change. And this is why managers often bring outsiders, people from a different unit of the organization, new hires from competing companies or consultants. And with their different backgrounds, attitudes, and management styles, these outsiders can bring a new perspective and can really shake things up. And use program conflict. Program conflict is designed to elicit different opinions without inciting people's personal feelings. And we are going to talk about that in the next slide. So program conflict, designed to elicit different opinions without inciting personal feelings. So Delva's advocacy is one person to play the role of critic to voice objection. So, they're not necessarily against it, but they're thinking of other ways to solve the problem. And then dialectic method is this idea of two people almost like in a debate discussing what's going on. Okay, so what are some behaviors that can help you better handle conflict? And again, as I said, conflict is inevitable. You might want to think about these things not only in terms of your work life, but also your home life. So best ways to better handle conflict: openness. Be sure to be, your full transparency in your views and be honest in them. Don't just say what you think people want to hear. Treat others' status and ideas as equal to yours. Be empathetic. Try to see things from other people's point of view. Be supportive to other folks, and also probably be positive about the other person and your relationship. And then finally, we talk about 5 different conflict handling styles. Avoiding. So avoiding, accommodating, forcing, compromising, and collaborating. We'll talk about them. Avoiding. There's pros and cons to all these. Benefit of this approach is that it buys time and unfolding ambiguous situations. The weakness is that it provides only a temporary fix and sidesteps the underlying problem. Accommodating is, well, just do it your way. The advantage of accommodating is that it encourages cooperation. The weakness is that, once again, it's only a temporary fix that fails to confront what the underlying problem is. Forcing, the idea of forcing is speed. You can get results quickly, and the disadvantage is that in the end, it doesn't resolve personal conflict. If anything, it aggravates it by breeding hurt feelings and resentment. Okay, compromising, let's split the difference. It's the benefit of compromise is that it's a democratic process that seems to have no losers. However, since so many people approach compromise situations with a win-lose attitude, they may be disappointed and feel cheated. And then collaborating, of course, is the ultimate goal. Strength of problem solving is that it's a longer-lasting impact because it deals with the underlying problem, not just its symptoms. Its weakness is that it's very time-consuming, but nevertheless, problem solving is usually the best approach for dealing with groups and teams of people. So if you put the time in to work through and trying to collaborate on ideas, then in the long run, it's gonna, it's a short term, it's a large investment of time, but long term, it really will help the organization. Okay, so that's it. That's just a quick talk on teams and groups and teams. And next we're going to talk about power and influence.